Welcome into another episode of Facts Not Feelings Friday. I am so excited to have you all in here today. Man, do we have an incredible episode today. So excited. I want to first and foremost thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you for so much for letting me into your workspace, into your home. Maybe you're driving right now and listening to it. So thanks for taking me along your drive. If you are liking the content, definitely let me know, like the show, comment on the show, rate the show, subscribe to it. Today, we have two incredibly brilliant, genius human beings on the show, and that is these two individuals. And we have Ramesh and John Hopkins on the show today, and we are tackling the metaverse. What I can tell you is they've been making worlds in this virtual reality world, pun intended here, for decades. The metaverse term is not even a new term. That term's been around for a really, really long time. So I can't express how excited I am for this episode, because there was so much that I took from it, and I got to think that other people will as well. And we're just on the precipice of where this is going. We can meet the consumer exactly where they are and how they want to interact with us, but also in the medical community and behavioral sciences and in shopping and e-commerce in general. There's so many ways that VR can assist people and help people. How are you all using it right now in your industry, and how are you measuring success? Where do you see it going? I mean, I know that we've got and I won't rapid fire questions to you right now. I'm just curious, how are you using it right now? I know it's still so new. I just want to know in general, where do we see this going? How are other industries using it? Because my background before I got in the automotive industry was in the medical field. And I'd love to hear how other people are using it, because if they're using it one way, we can all learn from each other, because this is not a fad. This is something that's here to stay, and that is going to continue to evolve. And we've got to meet whatever the customer is, whatever the consumer is, we've got to meet the consumer where they are. So whether that's in the medical field, whether that's in electronics, I don't care what field it is, we need to learn how to meet the consumer wherever they are in any part of the journey. So I just love to see how you all have taken it and evolved with it and continue to evolve with it. And just to help other people understand that like I said, how you're using it and where you kind of see it going.
Okay. So for us, it's the first question is, how do we use it in actual practice? So we've been using 3D virtual spaces as our work environment for maybe close to a decade now. And the reason being that because of the nature of the work, we have to go inside the environment and meet each other as avatars, just like what you're seeing here. So I am an avatar here, and if I were to speak, actually, I can just speak, and you can see my lips moving and all that. And John would join me in our workspace, and we have many team members. We would come together in our work environment, which is the virtual 3D space, and then we'll discuss about the design of the workspace environment. And basically, we created tools that we ourselves needed to make our work simpler. So in a sense, for us, the use case was very simple, because we are using the 3D world in a very direct way. Our workplace is the product itself. So that's how it's very obvious for us as a use case. And
yeah, for example, this room here where you're seeing us in World is where we hold our weekly meetings with the rest of the team. Yeah. So we've got, we have, if we want, we have various sort of the equivalents of audiovisual aids and so on. So, there's a board there which lets us interact with it to take notes during a meeting, to set the agenda for a meeting, and so on. So this is very much part of our working life, and we built all this. This is using our product.
Yeah.
So a couple of follow-up questions to that. One, do you feel like you have better engagement when you are in your workspace versus we all have Zoom fatigue at this point due to the pandemic and seeing floating heads? And now do you feel like you have better engagement in the metaverse and in your workspace versus talking heads like this?
So John is in a different country. In fact, all our members are in different countries. We have one, in Mauritius, one couple in England, and one in Canada, and we have, members from Germany. So it's impossible for us to actually, work together in one physical location. So it comes down to money, costs. If I were to build a company and rent for physical space and pay for the usual monthly cost, it's probably going to have cost us around $2 or $3 million right now just to make this company work. But right now we all work in the virtual space and we use other tools to interact and communicate. And that's on the practical side of things. And yes, if you look at the more social aspect side of things, I would say it has its obvious challenges. For example, if you look at my avatar and compare, the behavior of this little figure here and my video is of course, there are different ways of interacting at a distance, when you are geographically separated, but it's obvious that the video is more compelling in the sense that you can see my facial expression and you can basically look at my, there are many more clues that you can observe when you're having a conversation. And that's not currently, I would say, cheaply done in virtual worlds. The best thing that you can do at this time is maybe you can have some link syncing, and you can have maybe some face tracking and things like that. So that's to me is more along the lines of fidelity. So the higher the fidelity your VR environment becomes, the more of these cues can be captured. But there are more critical fundamental cues that cannot be transferred into the virtual worlds. For example, if I stand and walk in this environment, I can still be sitting and still be comfortable in my seat. So there is a disconnect between what's happening in the virtual world and the real world. And sometimes it's an advantage because if you stand for a long period of time and walk around, that's going to get very tiring. And so there are many more variables to consider. So those are the challenges aspect of it, of the problem that I think would make it difficult for especially the first generation of people who are seriously going to use virtual environments as offices. To answer your question. That's just my perspective.
Yeah, coming at from a bit of a different angle. When we're in meetings, we use Discord for voice, but we don't use video. And I don't miss it at all. I don't think most people do. There's a lot you can do with voice and you can concentrate on ourselves in world as you see it here, which means that we can move around in the world. We can show each other content and demonstrate things, and we're actually existing. Like Ramesh is now standing up and moving around. Yeah. I could get up and follow him. He can show me what he's been working on. I can show him what I've been working on, and so a lot of it is to do with the content that you have within the world.
So that's a very simple case where sharing the same virtual space is important because one is you can access the information very easily, but in addition to it, you have information about what your peers are doing and and what they are interested in. So that's a simple example. But if you think in a real office situation where you have brainstorming sessions, where you have like a board and somebody is doing like a Scrum session or is doing an agile design session, and they have to write down, various notes and stick on the board, and everyone has to look at it. You can use the space for doing all that. So these are the kind of, in the field, we call them affordances. It's like there are some inherent advantages to the environment that you can start discovering once you start, metaphorically living in it. Then you start exploiting those advantages that are not available in the real world. For us, it's very obvious, why we need to share the 3D space. And I think that the next question that comes up is, at least for me, if the metaverse is to become a space that's very, very useful to people who are not designers or 3D world creators, architects, and things like that, then we'll have to work very hard to make it easy for all these users to be able to add their content inside this 3D environment, this 3D space. And keep in mind that when I'm talking to you about the metaverse here, we are only talking about one type of the metaverse. We are talking about immersive environments. That is total 3D immersive environments, in the sense that we go as avatars inside the virtual world and then interact with each other. There are many different other types of virtual environments. You have augmented reality environments where you bring people in the real world around a desk and project like a hologram on the desk, and people can interact with it. But for us, we've used environments like this for training, like for emergency preparedness training, and for doing risk communications training. In every those cases, you will see, like in the hospital, for example, you need to train staff, how to communicate with patients during a surge situation. If there is a pandemic, you have a whole lot of people coming in the hospital. How do you triage them? And that's where doing these exercises in a 3D space, in a hospital itself, like we did, like 10 years ago. And we also have recorded results, how that is useful. And of course, you can make changes very rapidly. I just wanted to demonstrate something here, just to show how we can change content very rapidly. So here, for example, well, it's winter, and we can just change the season, and we have, the trees getting their leaves and everything, and it's already spring. But
I've got to think that's a lot of coding behind that. Like, as quickly as that's changing, how long is that taking you to code that?
Yeah, we created, I wrote the software behind all this changing of the trees and things. And other people are involved in creating the textures that you're seeing on the trees, and my software switches between those and things like that. But it means that the end user who has a setup like this doesn't have to do any coding. Everything is done very simply through menus and a HUD display on the top of the screen, and
that's phenomenal. That is absolutely. I'm just going to stop real quickly because I was watching something on your YouTube channel, and I thought I saw that, and I go, that can't be right, because everything that I've read thus far, and I've had conversations with people, it's been the amount of money someone's going to have to spend on coders to make their workspace and their universe is going to be astronomical, and so I'm going to plug this like crazy, because if there's no coding involved with your software, you're the first people, and I'm nowhere an expert on this, but this is the first time I've heard someone say you don't need coders.
We can only provide what we have. And the sense that I've written software to change the seasons on landscapes and change the textures of trees and hills and rocks and things like that. But if you wanted something else that we hadn't covered, then we would have to look into how we can do that.
Let's say you have like an architect and you go and meet the architect, and the architect, just you're talking to the architect and say, I would like this type of house, and I need so many rooms because I have so many kids. And, basically you're having this conversation, and just imagine as you're speaking with the architect, he's listening to you, he or she is listening to you, and at the end of the conversation, he says, okay, let's have a walk in this space and see, how it is. So that's our kind of goal. It's to make sure that we have a set of parts that many users can use according to their needs. They can assemble it in different ways in order to meet their needs. You will hear in a few years, people will start talking about, how can we make it easier for end users, not developers, not designers, not coders, to create what they need inside the virtual environment.
Ramesh and John, thank you so much for lending everyone your brain today. I mean, it's just been, you guys are, I cannot say thank you enough. And for not only showing and actually being able to see how things are built and how things are done. And I'm really going to say dispelling some myths, because personally, I can't think that I'm the only one. Like this is all new to me, that you don't have to only build us in the metaverse and in one way, and all the different things that you can do. I mean, you guys have been doing this for years, this is nothing new. So just thank you so much for taking the time to enlighten all of us. And like I said, letting me steal your brains for a little bit and pick your brains a little bit on this has been awesome. And developing a product that makes it so seamless that you don't have to spend an absorbent amount on something to have a world out there. So thank you once again for this. Everyone, once again, that I'm always going to close like this. Be kind to people. Do something nice for your neighbor. Go serve someone. This is not something that I just say lackadaisically. This is something that is so deep in my bones and in my DNA. My mother was such that to her last dying breath, it was to serve other people. And what can I do to better someone's life? And so this is something I really truly do believe in. It's just, you never know when someone else is hurting or needs a helping hand or needs that kind smile. So do your best, be a good person, serve your neighbor. It might be something as simple as, always, you're at the grocery store and someone just needs assistance with something, but just be that person, be the goodness in someone's life. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much.